Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media accounts we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. You don't have to memorize any of those by any means, but it's just so you know all the ways we are out there so you can find us in whatever's most convenient for you and be a part of that conversation that we are striving to have, in any case, day by day here, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., that talk about the things affecting us here in the borderland, because no one else is going to talk about the things and the way they affect us here besides, well, the people who live here. So that's why we do that, and that's why we're in those places, and we'll continue to do so. But don't worry, we're definitely going to be on air, and we do not neglect at all our on-air audience. I mean, the traffic issues alone to be talked about are very significant here, as well as have Robbie Flores and Monica Cervantes chiming in and dropping those likes over on the social media. We'll open up those phone lines a little bit later in the hour, as we usually do so here. Make no mistake there. But a lot to talk about here today. Start of the week. Again, a busy weekend, as seemingly usual, among other things. More specifically, a couple of interesting interviews and other topics coming to light, including a very illuminating, in its own way, interview with City Manager Tommy Gonzalez, in his own words, in the aftermath, or I guess technically kind of in the midst of it, or maybe just after, I guess might be the best way to put it. The whole kerfuffle over his contract extension, hearing directly from him. A lot of conversation about decisions and such happening, of course, over this weekend. We'll delve into some of that. But even then, that issue isn't even only one of the aspects that's going to be coming up potentially in local ballots. We've mentioned a couple of things that could be coming up either before city council or ultimately to the voters, including, among other things, also referenced in that interview we mentioned with the city manager, the idea of overriding the veto that comes to, or removing it, rather, to be perfectly accurate. The override is what has most recently happened, but removing the ability entirely of the veto to exist for the mayor as a possibility. But that's not even the only, well, change we could be seeing in city government elections, etc., because there are even, we've talked a little bit about it in the past week, but more possibilities of ballot initiatives that would seek to change these things. It's another one of those petition drives, among other things, that I've been approached by even while being just out and about. So you may have run into yourself, delving into what exactly is going on with that, among other things, as we're still dealing with, of course, those temperatures and heat in the area, hopefully on the tail end of it here. But Texas definitely sizzling over this past week. No major failures, at least that I'm aware of, but a level of concern that is certainly understandable. And in addition, while we're looking at that, some more statewide proposals when it comes to mental health and school safety programs, what the governor has to say, among other things here. Also dropping that love react over on the Facebook page, Michael Robert Tipton, Mr. Tipton 33. Of course, you want to find him online, and he is the host of The Tipping Point with Mike Tipton, airing on Fox Sports 1380 every Friday at 5. So you may sometimes hear this this very familiar voice over on that as well. It's recorded early in the day, but it's definitely a good conversation. If you want to find them on their social media, of course, just look for The Tipping Point with Mike Tipton. Be able to join in on there when they do the live recordings for that as well. So that's just a few of the things that are top of mind here today. Like, one thing I do want to make sure that we address here, because it's ever so slightly near and dear to our heart. We, of course, have had that contest going on, or giveaway would be the better way to put it here, because to enter is dead simple. You just got to go over to the iHeartRadio app, make sure that you, well, find us, and hit that little red microphone button so you can leave us your own talkback message. And a perfect example of such, we had Calvin leaving us his message end of last week.
Hey, Andrew, it's Calvin from the far east El Paso. Just wanted to check out and see if this red microphone thing really worked, let you know you're doing a great job, and to let your listeners know that this is a great way to communicate. Thanks for taking my call.
Absolutely happy to do so, and very happy to say by leaving your message, you've got it. You've got that $100 gift card to Gentleman's Republic Barber Salon and Men's Spa. We'll just be make sure to reply to the emails we're sending out to confirm that with you. Or if you don't have a good one there, over on the iHeartRadio app, just gonna make sure to drop us a line here at andrewpolk@iheartmedia.com, and you'll be able to make sure you get the contact information and pick it up directly from Gentleman's Republic Barber Salon and Men's Spa. So we're going to continue doing that this week. Of course, the Father's Day giveaway continuing on through, well, the day in question itself there. So if you are wanting to make sure that you can enter, all you have to do is follow that great example there. You just need to leave a message through the iHeartRadio app. If you're over on our social media right now, we have got the well, if you're here, we got the right picture up here of what it'll look like, what you should look for, and you're looking for that little red microphone button. Might be bigger if you make it zoomed in or not, but you tap on that. It'll give you the option to leave a message. You can leave up to a 30-second message and be able to contribute to the show. And simply by doing so, you're going to be entered into the drawing for that next giveaway here, going again right up until the day in question. So be sure to get your messages in there. Again, the iHeartRadio app, just look for the 690 page. If you're hearing our show, you're in the right place, or of course any of our other hosts, and you'll be able to leave that message and get onto it. So again, perfect example. We'll revisit that a little bit later in the program just to get the message out there. But one of the conversations and comments coming in already, Rudy Rivera, rather, saying the city manager system of local government is working for Tommy, the tapeworm Gonzalez, and nobody else. So I think we can take that as a dissatisfied kind of comment with the way it currently works. We don't usually comment much on other media, except from those from our news partners, of course, here. But it's, I think, important to mention that there has been some local feedback and reporting recently, particularly over the weekend, from some previous city mayors, rather, to be more specific about it, talking about what exactly is the point. Going back to, I think, Joe Wardy even being mentioned as part of that, because that is, of course, part of where the actual system came into place. So some of those conversations are interesting here, but going to that interview again over from El Paso Inc. today, again, a full candid interview with him, full title, City Manager Tommy Gonzalez, in his own words, and then subtitle, why he considered the job in Frisco. That is, I think, a very important question that a lot had been wondering about, more almost speculation than anything else. Well, there's been a lot of speculation, so maybe that's a overstatement on my part, but the idea of, okay, why did this even come up? Because I think more than a few people, frankly myself included, felt a little, wait, what kind of emotion happened when it came out that he was a finalist for that position in the city of Frisco? So the answer he gave to El Paso Inc. on this idea, saying that he hadn't really considered it and that he gets headhunted every so often, also mentioning, quote here, El Paso really has become an amazing city. The reason he says here, and I quote, this one opportunity, the reason why I even thought about it was my youngest son was considering a law school in that area. We just thought it was a good opportunity to get back with him. He's not even 20 yet, and he's a senior in college. We kind of missed some years with him with COVID and how fast he went through high school and college. Finally wrapping up by saying there were more pros to staying here in El Paso when the council showed their commitment to me by doing what they did, by saying we're going to vote this way. If you do that, will you commit to staying and removing your name? It was something that was heartwarming and showed a lot of support for my family and myself. When they did that, I reciprocated and removed my name from consideration. So that's a little bit direct quote from Tommy Gonzalez there. Again, full article up over on elpasoinc.com. Get your subscription there if you haven't already, along with several other items of interest here, including new employment, as well as new on the aerospace and defense industry taking off in town, which we've had more than a little bit conversation as. So that's just one interesting tidbit here, but that's also one other point made in that article is about the idea of that whole, well, veto when it comes to, or vetoing the veto. Again, to be more accurate, when it comes to the mayor's ability to even do so into the future. It's been part of a proposal considered by the Ad Hoc Charter Advisory Committee. So if that could actually come up for more, well, we'll have more conversation about that here. So Let's get to that next break right now. Already due for that here of this hour. You're all, of course, tuned into Talk El Paso, airing live here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. If you wanted to comment here, a few more coming in over on the social media. Again, Facebook.com/Talk El Paso is the main one, but also YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch.tv. But we just got to take that first break right now. Again, we'll be taking calls a little bit later in the hour. As we do, don't worry. We haven't lost that focus by any means. But coming back out of this break, talk more about maybe some of those other ballot amendments or initiatives that could be on your ballot and what that might mean for, well, city management, etc. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break. Father's Day is right around the corner, and if you're wondering what to give the guy that you have no idea what he actually likes or not, A, maybe work that out, but B, if they like either cooking or eating, which by my calculations includes the entire population, more or less, give or take, error bars around that, you might want to consider giving them something, either great ingredients to either make things with or to make it for them. Either way, you can get all of that from our friends over at Enhanced Flavors, because they have got, of course, your locally based supply of over 40 different extra virgin olive oils, flavored olive oils, and even balsamic vinegars. I've got the supply they've got there. Marinades are one great way to do it, but even anything that you would use those ingredients in, plus, I mean, there's just so much variety. Really get to the chef inside you or inside the favorite father in your life. You can find, of course, Enhanced Flavors. They are out there in the community. Find them in farmers markets such as the Country Club Farmers Market on weekends, but also you can always find them online at enhancedflavors.com. Again, that's enhanced with a D, flavors.com. And even for just listening to the show and placing your order, enter that code EF Radio. That's EF Radio, as in Enhanced Flavors Radio. Enter that over on the website, and you'll get 15% off your next order. So get that order in today and make yourself and dad very happy, or any time of the year. Again, enhancedflavors.com. That's enhanced with a D, flavors.com.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Checking El Paso traffic, a couple of wrecks real close to each other. I-10 westbound at Schuster. There's an accident involving 3 vehicles blocking the left lane with police and fire on the scene. Expect delays there. I-10 westbound at Executive Center Boulevard. I-10 eastbound at Porfirio Diaz. A stalled flatbed trailer is blocking the left shoulder. And Lee Trevino northbound at Pelicano, an accident reported. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
The Fed says they can't stop inflation without crashing the economy, but their latest remarks reveal their sinister plan. I'm Mark Moss, each week discussing the decentralized revolution. So join me for the Mark Moss Show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is Michael David from Seattle. I'm 51 years old, and 6 months ago, I started taking Andro 400 to increase my testosterone. Since then, I've lost 35 pounds of fat, and my waist went from size 38 to size 32. I have more energy, and I look and feel 20 years younger. And now my wife tells me I have to take Andro 400.
Hi, this is Ron Johnson from Utah. After 10 weeks of taking Andro 400, I lost 13 pounds and my waist went from 36 to 33. That was 8 years ago. I continued to take Andro 400 and I've maintained my weight at 172. Gained muscle and energy. I'm 63 now and feel better than I have in 30 years.
Andro 400, the natural way to increase testosterone, lose belly fat, gain energy, and feel great. Try Andro 400, the safe, effective, affordable way to boost your testosterone. Go to andro400.com or call 888-400-0435. 888-400-0435.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today. For good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
Okay, open wide. Good to see you've been flossing. What's on your chest? Oh, that's just my lentil soup. It was supposed to be here an hour ago. I'll say it's unprofessional. We should have ordered through EasyCater. Food shows up on time as ordered. Yeah, it really burns me up too. Oh, the soup. Oh, hold my crackers. I'll go get the lead apron.
Some food just doesn't work at work, but EasyCater just does. Food for work on time and as ordered from over 85,000 restaurants. Order 24/7 at easycater.com.
Teens in foster care will love you, even if you don't know the lingo.
Dad bod, noun.
The result of the occasional donut, always washed down with confidence.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council. Visit adoptuskids.org.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to interact with the show, as is just ever so slightly a mild purpose that we do, and having our conversation about what involves and affects us here in the Southwest Borderland region. Well, those phone lines open up a little bit later, as we do. No worries there. But also we got comments coming in over on the social media. What are the better ways to really get your 2 cents in throughout the program here? Again, Facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of comments coming in even as of this moment. RJ saying, so does Tommy G have a degree in city planning, infrastructure, or what exactly? The top of my head, I know he was previously a city manager. Forgetting the actual place of that city offhand here, but he makes a decent mention of that in, again, that El Paso Inc. article, among other things discussing here. Maria Coleman saying, I believe he used the possibility of the other opportunity as leverage here. The other position paid less. No one at his level negotiates for lower contract and less benefits. Yeah, that sounds about right. John Browson saying before that, if no one can veto what the city council does, we don't need a city council. Just let the city manager manage the city and have a citizen council grade him or her on the job that each does each year. That's an interesting concept and take on that. I'm not taking that as necessarily you're supporting the idea, but as a why even bother then kind of thing. I mean, the idea of a citizen council, I mean, more citizens should be involved. I've made no secret of my opinion on that, but yeah, it does. Here's the question. Okay, what exactly would the role of the mayor be besides just running city council meetings, I guess, among other things? And Calvin Lynch a little bit before that saying, in the private sector, looking for another job is grounds for termination at your present job. Did he use a government computer to put his name in the hat? Interesting question there. I'm going to suspect maybe no. Either that or is really good keeping a lid on it, as, again, I think more than a few people felt a little blindsided when even the finalist position came out as the potential there for the city of Frisco. But again, what Maria was mentioning there, that being a lower pay rate, yes, I do believe that to be correct. It was in I think the mid 200s was the best we were able to get from the possible pay scale for the city of Frisco. And among other things, I know concretely that the starting wage for a deputy city manager was going to be in the high 100s. Of the 6-figure range, so like 190, and then stepping up from there. So taking the next step up, yeah, that makes a level of sense here. But so getting a little bit further into that potential of the removal of the veto. Again, that was actually a mentioned part in the interview done in El Paso, just pulling out this one further part of it. The question was, there have also been discussions about possible recommendations for changing the city charter, including changes to the mayor's veto power. What's your perspective on that? Gonzalez quoted as saying, it's a council manager form of government. In that form of government, the council has all the control. It's in all the body's hands as opposed to any one individual. I'm used to working in that environment. Every city I've worked in works in that environment. The council as a body has the power of the vision, the direction that we take as a city. So my reading on that, I guess, is a kind of, well, why not? Maybe not even that strong, but if it happens, it happens. Not really very strong one way either here, I would guess here. John Browson saying, if we no longer have to pay each council member $30,000 per year, then I don't mind paying the city manager more than the president of the United States here. So maybe it is in favor of the idea of getting rid of city council and just having a citizens advisory committee. Well, you're entitled to your opinion on that. I got to say, even if there might be some concerns, shall we say, about any individual city council member, their policies, positions, etc. The idea of even less of the power of decisions in the city being on the ballot, because, I mean, they think about it, the city manager is not an elected position. It's an appointed and more or less hired one. That's why, even if there might be a good reason for them to look maybe a little bit more locally for talents, just for, I think, just more than a little bit CYA kind of sense, cover your rear, so to speak. They do that national search, hiring the firm to do it, find all the best candidates, et cetera, because they don't want to be on the hook, essentially, the current decision makers to being said, well, we hired who we thought would be best, and if they didn't work out, well, that stinks. They can say, like, well, we did the hiring for him, so really, it's not our fault that it didn't work out. I mean, that's not the entire point, but you can pretty clearly see why that would be a point, among other things, in that whole process. Really a simpler way to look at it, or more relevant recent way you could look at it locally, was how they did most of the searches for the superintendents that have been coming up in the area, both for EPISD and others here, as much as there were some previous callers on the show that were very interested in there being more of a local connection here. They ended up pretty much having to do that quote unquote national search, though whether or not they actually go around, look at all of the qualified candidates, or maybe like flip through a phone book or two in another city or two just to make sure they're covering their bases. Again, there's more than a little bit of CYA baked into that. I mean, sure, talent and ability to do the job and reliability in doing so would certainly be a core part of it. But once you start getting up to that level, making sure that the decision makers can't be blamed if it goes bottom up, so to speak, I think is more than a little bit important with the whole process. RJ asking about our giveaway here, bringing that up, $100 haircut certificate. So how much is a haircut, and do I need an Uber for the rest in red beer? I mean, drive safe always if you're doing things like that and going to be drinking there. One comes complimentary with it. They've got the whole schedule and what their prices are over on their website, gentleman'srepublic.com. So if you're wanting to, take part in it yourself, I mean, if you're drinking an Uber and taking an Uber, it's probably a good recommendation as well. Kevin Williams saying further that the number of votes received by the mayor should override the lower total votes received by the council member who opposes the mayor. That's an interesting concept here. The idea that more people vote for the mayor, therefore it should have more power. I guess that's kind of written into the veto the way that it is. And also, maybe if it was a per district thing, that would almost be an interesting mechanism. Well, you see, in this district, you got more votes than the city council member that was run there. So you are senior to them. But actually, in this district, you got less votes than that city council person. So unfortunately, they get your office now. I don't know how we would actually do that, but it's an interesting idea of a mechanism. And so speaking of mechanisms for elections, we talked last week, of course, about the idea of the El Paso Climate Charter and that whole initiative. I have both personally been approached about signing it when I've been out and about, not based on who I am, but rather being a person in a public place and being asked if I'm a registered voter or not. And that's why last week I thought I was getting the same thing when I was out and about in the downtown area in general, and got asked, am I a registered voter? I said, oh, well, and I saw they had a clipboard and all that good stuff saying, oh, well, okay, if this is the climate charter, yes, I'm aware of it. And they said, oh, no, this is actually something else. So it's not a lot that I've been approached about signing a petition or even registering to vote for that matter. But the fact that it happened a second time within a couple of weeks is just very interesting to me. You may have heard of the group El Pasoans for Fair Elections. If you haven't, the good news is that's also the name of their website, elpasoansforfairelections.org, claiming to have come out of both Justicia Fronteriza as well as the concerns laid out in the book, Who Rules El Paso? Previous guests on the show and previous incarnations of the show, among other things. They have specifically 3 ballot propositions that are out there right now that would affect, among other things, not necessarily the veto, but rather how we get city council people installed. So, according to their website, just going to read off it directly here. Proposition A limits contributions to political campaigns for mayor and city council to $1,000 per individual donor per election, requires campaign donors to disclose the place of their employment, and requires the city to adopt enforcement provisions. Goes on to say, if you've read the book, Who Rules El Paso, or taken a look at the financial reports of our elected city leaders, you know that a handful of wealthy El Pasoans control local politics. This proposition will tie their hands. End quote. Again, quoting, reading directly from elpasoansforfairelections.org. That was Proposition A. Proposition B establishes public finances for candidates for mayor and city council who voluntarily agree to limit their campaign contributions and expenditures and demonstrate community support for their candidacy. That each of these propositions seem to essentially be styled with the effective part, or what would become the effective part if actually passed, into the city charter, and then a little bit of commentary on why they're focusing on that. So the commentary part here, cities like Albuquerque have seen an increase in progressive candidates getting elected to office due to public financing programs. In our proposed program, candidates must submit signatures of support from 1% of registered voters and must also commit to voluntarily limiting their overall campaign contributions and expenditures. This proposition will help community candidates run without the pressure of caving into big money interests to fund their campaigns. And then finally, Proposition C, under this specific effort here, again, coming from El Pasoans for FairElections.org, their Proposition C would eliminate the need for runoff elections for mayor and city council by using ranked choice voting, where voters rank candidates in order of preference. And if no candidate receives a majority, candidates with the fewest votes are eliminated and the votes they received are transferred to the voter's second choice, and so on until there is a majority vote for one candidate. So go with the commentary part of that section here. Austin voters passed ranked choice voting through ballot initiative, and other cities are considering it as well. No Texas city has yet to implement it, and we would love for El Paso to be the first to do so. Ranked choice voting would help us save money by avoiding runoff elections that tend to have very low turnout rates, and would also give voters the option of ranking candidates they may like but fear they are not quote unquote viable. So kind of, not exactly at all, but Calvin Williams was mentioning there about the idea of having differences or impacts to the voting. That Proposition C specifically, would essentially completely revamp the way voting happens, at least for local positions here in El Paso, because I don't think you can tell, well, the rest of the state how you're going to do it. And so that would lead to my having a question about the idea of truly saving money, among other things. If you're still having to have a statewide runoff election, those costs still come here. But those are just some of the more interesting things that, again, it's rare, if ever, that I can really remember locally anyway. I've been approached about a petition effort. So the fact that there's been two within, well, essentially the last 2 weeks is of note to me. So wanted to look into it and curious what you all have to say. So coming out of this break, we got to take the next one right now. We're talking more about some of those statewide efforts on some of those big issues, including, of course, power grid security, etc., and then also gun safety and school security. Those are some of the major things going on there, what the governor has to say, among other things. So taking that next break right now, coming out of this break, with more of the comments on the line as well. If you want to, leave your messages over there. Open up those phone lines just a little bit later, as we do, probably end of next segment. So stay tuned for more Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I'm Selena Madrid with your CBS 4 News Update. A bipartisan group of senators say they've reached a deal on new gun violence legislation. The bill has the support of 20 senators, including 10 Republicans. It offers modest gun curbs along with funds to beef up school security and improve mental health programs. The measures fall short of the tougher controls called for by Democrats, but it's a show of action after mass shootings in Buffalo and Uvalde, and it comes after years of gridlock on the issue in Congress. And Las Cruces police are asking for the public's help in finding a 13-year-old boy they believe could be in danger. Xavier Hernandez was last seen early Saturday morning near Lynn Middle School. He's 5'9" and weighs about 150 pounds. Hernandez also has black hair, hazel eyes, and was last seen wearing torn blue jeans and a white t-shirt. In addition, he has a tattoo of a baby angel on his right forearm and lettering on his knuckles. Anyone with information is asked to call Las Cruces police immediately.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
I-10 westbound at Schuster Avenue. An accident is blocking the left lane. It's a 3-vehicle crash that's off to the left. Expect delays. I-10 westbound at Executive Center Boulevard. An accident with police arriving there. Injury accident Gateway Boulevard westbound at Hawkins. And that earlier crash with injuries at McCombs northbound south of the 54 Gateway had 3 people taken to the hospital. Still a backup there. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
After a stretch of extremely hot weather, changes are on the horizon as our weather pattern will begin to shift. Expect a partly cloudy sky tonight with a 10% chance for an isolated shower or storm, and it'll be another warm one as temperatures bottom out in the middle to upper 70s. Coming up tonight, we'll talk about a cooling trend along with an increased chance for rain and storms. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Kira Miner.
This report is sponsored by Blindster. Do you need new blinds or shades? Blindster.com KTSM offers custom-made blinds, shades, and shutters shipped directly to you at prices less than big box retailers. Blindster blinds are easy to install and guaranteed to fit. Don't overpay for new blinds. Shop Blindster today and save big. Blindster.com.
New on Curiosity Stream.
From time to time, we have collisions between asteroids and the Earth.
We track them. We study them. We hope the big one never comes. Don't look up. It's asteroid rush. And alligators. They rarely get sick. They even outlasted the dinosaurs. Could they hold the secret to human longevity?
Their blood could have antibacterial applications.
Wade into the investigation on immortal alligators. Watch now on Curiosity Stream. Annual plans are $20, just $1.67 a month. Visit curiositystream.com.
Maybe you've had to put off a health appointment or two during the COVID-19 pandemic. But if you're 45 or older, there's one test you shouldn't put off any longer. Regular screening for colorectal cancer. Colorectal cancer is a leading cancer killer, but it can be prevented with regular screening starting at 45. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. It takes guts to put your health first. Ask your doctor about your options today. Visit cdc.gov/screening4life for more information.
Talk El Paso, weekdays at 4 on News Radio 690 KTSM, breaking down the impact of the news on the borderland and beyond. Brought to you in part by Mission Del Rey Southwest, souvenirs, gifts, and decor. That's Talk El Paso, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., right here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Virginia Hall is one of the most famous American spies in history, and during World War II, she was called the most dangerous of all Allied spies by none other than the Butcher of Lyon. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This report is sponsored by the Our American Stories podcast.
Text and whatever. Just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Those, of course, are even the only ways that you can get at us. We'll be opening up those phone lines towards the end of this segment here, as we do usually during the show. And anytime you want to, leave us a message either through the talkback feature on the iHeartRadio app, as Calvin did a very good job demonstrating there, as well as, through the pound 250 message. We can also take some of those a little bit later in the show, as we will. So, a lot of conversation going on in the comments right now about suitability or not there is about different elected officials or unelected officials with the city, different ways of managing it, or even the way we handle those elections. Again, those interesting ballot propositions might delve into those a little bit further. I think the purpose that they're seeking for there as well is to order to get them onto the November ballot as well. So those are just the ones I'm aware of immediately right now. It's entirely possible that there could be more out there. So that would be unusual for the city in any case to have so many other priorities. I mean, we had that one again, lost dog, if you lived within the taxing area. I'm not quite sure how they delineated, to be perfectly honest, even from this standpoint, having looked into it, but it wasn't a full city thing. Was on my ballot because I guess I'm within striking distance of it, so to speak. I really don't know the justification, but these being citywide should end up, if they do go onto the ballot, that is, on just about anyone's different ballots, regardless of where you live, as long as you're within the city limits of El Paso. So that's why we might delve a little bit further into those going forward here. A lot of comments coming in about this, among other things. Some lack of enthusiasm for ranked choice voting. I think Brosnan saying ranked voting makes liberal politicians end up winning when they couldn't win in an open election. And Michael Perez further saying ranked choice voting is another Democrat steal the election trick. I wouldn't go necessarily that far. I mean, my major concerns come from the idea of, okay, voting is pretty low as it is, and we're going to go ahead and make it more complicated. Like, sure, I have not exactly ever voted in a open election like that. I've had some organizational use of it. Frankly, it hasn't been since high school now that I'm thinking about it, but still, it has its upsides and downsides. One is that, yes, there is actually, I guess I'll take that back. I've used weighted voting now that I think about it, which is the more complicated cousin of this, but the idea is in ranked choice voting, which I do believe Australia uses right now. You don't just select the number one candidate you want to vote for, you select, well, you number all of them, which in long elections and very well-populated candidate lists can mean you have to number quite a lot. And there was at least at one point, I think, before Australia ended up implementing a randomization of the selection on the ballot, there was at least in some races where it was alphabetical. So there was at least one intrepid candidate that I'm aware of that literally changed their name to appear higher on the ballot because, sure, people might go and put the number one by their favorite candidate, but then they just go down the list with the rest of them. So I'm not sure if that person won or if that's just like an apocryphal tale that has no real justification to it, but I do know for sure that Australia does randomize their ballot listings now, I think more or less in deference to that, but that's just one of the examples I'm aware of on this. So that would be, again, how it works. So ultimately, I think would end up meaning that processing through elections would take longer, but the idea of there not being any runoffs, mildly advantageous. I'm not sure, at least in the current climate here in the borderland region, it totally outweighs the, well, again, with a lack of people going out to vote as it is, you think that making it more complicated without dealing with the voter turnout already is going to have a total net benefit? No, I think we'd see less people voting, and I fully be very surprised if it were to be the opposite of that. So some more questions coming in on that here, among other things. Lost my place here. Michael Pettis saying, why can't the city council list the major accomplishments of the city manager? I mean, there have been some releases. I want to say something that we read from a little bit right after the initial vote to extend the city manager's contract. See if I can pull that one up here in a minute. But Eric von Holstein-Rathlow saying, what good are our local politicians if they don't know how to manage a city? Seems like they're just delegating the responsibilities to an overpaid consultant. I mean, I guess I get what you're getting at there. Definitely a lot more involved than a consultant. I mean, the whole city manager side of government, I think the real issue with it for the general population is the idea that, sure, city council members, even if they have staff members that you may never know who the heck they are, it's ultimately then tangible and accountable to the vote you place for the city council member. That makes a certain level of sense. But then the entire idea of this just electoral intractability of the city manager side of it, that sure, you are electing the body that appoints this person, but then that whole organization under it being without, for lack of a better term, less transparent than the rest of the city council, at least seemingly says so. I mean, I can see why that is a level of concern. Essentially, I mean, I was not around in time and point to vote on this, not able to vote at that point in time, so couldn't express my opinion on it. But essentially, the idea behind the implementation of the city manager, at least the way it was portrayed to me, particularly when I was in school, is that less variability between administrations on how just basic city business is handled and more structure, so to speak. I'm not going to exactly think it's going to say that allowing for the bureaucracy to be more stable, but you wouldn't also necessarily be blamed for thinking that. John Browse in an answer to that previous question as well, saying he saved over $2 million by laying off city employees during COVID. One of the specific items I do recall is that there was a savings of some hundreds of millions of dollars over the term of office that the city manager has had. Again, release sent out a little bit before there was the actual, all of the things and votes going on with this. See if I can pull it up here for you before too long. Oh, I actually got it right here. Among the other actual, here, I'll just read the paragraph here since you so politely asked. What was sent out by the city here is that under Gonzalez's leadership, the city of El Paso has so far achieved $227 million in cost savings. He has further strengthened El Paso's financial stability by eliminating a $7.8 million general fund deficit in 2014, eliminating a $27 million operating deficit in the mass transit department, eliminating an annual $1 million operating deficit from the city golf course, and tripling the fund balance by increasing it by more than $73 million, capturing state sales tax for downtown hotels revitalization, and led the city of El Paso team to achieve zero audit findings for 5 consecutive years. I mean, that's just one part of a full page press release there, so I'm not going to read out the whole thing, but I mean, so there has been some out there to your point here, but if you wanted to talk more about that, wouldn't be an unreasonable point either. Eric von Holstein-Rathlow also saying, couldn't the mayor do that in terms of saving by laying off, among other things? I mean, I think there's some reasonable commentary there. Maria Kalman saying that as long as the southern border remains porous, I can't take politicians seriously. Drugs, criminals, and firearms continue to pour into the U.S. daily. If D.C. politicians were truly sincere about change, closing the border would be an effective initiative. Law-abiding citizens would be impacted adversely. Nothing will change because criminals will always be able to acquire guns. And Calvin Williams saying further, how does a person making $250,000, closer to $500,000 a year, frankly, take orders from someone that makes $30,000 a year? Sounds like a lot of go pound sand conversations happened. Okay, I'll just say from what I have noticed directly that it is, in effect, and even by the interview here, supposed to be that, yes, city council informs the city manager of what the priorities and policy will be, and then city manager goes and, well, implements it. Think of it kind of like the legislature and executive branch relationship without the executive city manager, in this case, having supposedly any independent authority outside of what has been passed by, well, city council in this case. But it doesn't always seem to be that way. There's at least one occasion that sticks in my head when there was, again, just a whole lot of favor on the part of city council for some point or another. I'll have to dig through the archives to figure out what exactly that day was. I know it was back in the Courtney Nyland era, because I remember this specifically as Mayor Pro Tem at the time, I do believe, coming out and being very surprised because she particularly had been fired up on the issue, and coming out of executive session, which is that nice closed door bit that makes a level of sense when you're thinking about, negotiation, contracts, legal issues. Sure, there's a reason for those not necessarily to be fully out in the open, but the fact that they came back, completely reversed the decision they seem to be impending with no further discussion, I find a level concerning that quote, ever happens, because, again, not necessarily how it's supposed to go. A lot more conversation happening on this, but we got to take that next break right now. Coming out of the break, we'll get into more of the statewide things that we had planned on going to, except this discussion has certainly taken off, as I guess I shouldn't be surprised that it has a lot of interest in this kind of thing. So to that point, we'll also go ahead and open up those phone lines right now. If you wanted to call in during the show, that number to do so, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We'll take those calls, comments, and all of that with more Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. The number one more time, 915-544-5876. Back after this break. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 westbound at Schuster Avenue. An accident is blocking the left lane. It's a 3-vehicle crash that's off to the left. Expect delays. I-10 westbound at Executive Center Boulevard. An accident with police arriving there. Injury accident, Gateway Boulevard westbound at Hawkins. And that earlier crash with injuries at McCombs northbound south of the 54 Gateway had 3 people taken to the hospital. Still a backup there. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Blindster. Do you need new blinds or shades? Blindster.com offers custom-made blind shades and shutters shipped directly to you at prices less than big box retailers. Blindster blinds are easy to install and guaranteed to fit. Don't overpay for new blinds. Shop Blindster today and save big. Blindster.com.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along, which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job in ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. That's ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter.com/radio.
Hey, El Paso, Ivan Ochoa, General Manager of Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. We make car buying fast, fun, and easy. And due to high demand, we need trades. So we'll do whatever it takes to get you out of your old vehicle into a new car, truck, or SUV today.
Even if you owe thousands more than your trade is worth, we want it, so you can get huge savings on every new and certified pre-owned vehicle in our huge inventory. For a limited time, get $4,000 off MSRP on the all-new 2022 full-size Wagoneer SUV with third-row seating and up to $7,000 off select new Ram trucks. Super low 2.9% APR for 72 months on the all-new 2022 Dodge Charger. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Trade and upgrade for less during the Make the Switch event at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying a car is fun at I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina El Paso strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL. 2.9% APR is $15.15 per thousand finance on select vehicles. Zero down with approved credit. Offers not combined.
Bitcoin is under attack in some states while it's being welcomed in others. What's going on and what comes next? I'm Mark Moss, each week discussing the decentralized revolution. So join me on the Mark Moss Show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to interact with the program. We have that phone line open now, as we do at this point during, well, just about every show. 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM, the number to call there. A lot of comments coming in over on the social media as well, including those dropping those likes and reacts. We do appreciate Blanco Jimenez, Michael Robert Tipton, Robbie Flores, and Monica Cervantes. This helps with all those algorithmic things. So if you give it a like, a share, a post, what have you, it all helps us in our mission to have more live local talk radio here in the borderlands. So, and discuss the things that no one else is going to talk about the way we do, those that are affected by them. So we appreciate it greatly. Take all feedback in order, though. RJ saying, on the whole city manager conversation here, I like having an educated city manager taking care of the daily business and serious issues. People like Swarzvine scare me. Let's be real. Interesting comment there. John Hertz disagreeing with that slightly, saying Tommy Gonzalez could not manage a, let's call it a feces altercation involving monkeys here. I mean, yeah, you can read it for yourself there. Maria Coleman saying, City Council voted for the contract even though public opinion was negative. They are elected to serve us. I think that was part of the sticking point and why there was ending up being 2 vetoes and an ultimate override on the final one there, because I think there was some scrutiny happening, and that's essentially what the mayor of El Paso said in his release on this issue. What he actually said, quote, the feedback I received from the community overwhelmingly supported my veto. That said, the vote has been taken and it is time to continue to move El Paso forward, saying after the second veto that happened here. Kelvin Williams saying, because they pretend to listen while running for a position and then they instantly know better than us when elected. And Louis Panato, again, taking a dim view, saying Mr. Gonzalez was hired to do the bidding of the Hunt, Jordan, Foster cabal. I mean, that's some of the reasoning that some use again in opposition to this here. Again, some of the previous efforts that we've mentioned here, including Who Rules El Paso, delves a little bit further into that here. But whether you're happy with it or not, again, the sum total of what's going to happen right now is that it does appear to be moving forward unless there is some other reconsideration, essentially by City Council at this point, which I would be very surprised if comes up. So, that being said, still think that people getting their, well, views and concerns out there is very important for this whole process, something that we hope to facilitate ever so slightly. And as this continues to do so, I guess one of the major concerns also coming out of Mayor Leeser's mind on his veto on this was essentially tying the hands of future city councils. I mean, he previously said that essentially they had inherited this city manager and were not able to therefore consider a replacement unless there is serious cause involved. I mean, the contract has its very strict stipulations, compensation levels, etc., including a cap, except for cause in a different way. Salary cap of about $450,000 per year, plus benefits, unless there is a reevaluation of market trends and such in other major regional cities. I think basically consider what's going on from about, well, more or less Phoenix all the way to Dallas is one way to think of it, and all the way up to like Albuquerque and maybe beyond here. So those are just part of what's going on there. And again, don't forget about those ballot initiatives. We'll be delving further into those here. Calvin Williams saying onto the state issues. Tell you what, we'll have to get into those more here in the next hour. But let's just say that two major things that we'll be talking about in the next hour coming out with what the state is looking at, specifically that we have the Texas House Speaker considering a bill of more than $100 million worth when it comes to mental health and school safety programs. And Catherine Coder asking, what is the current population in the metro area of El Paso? Depending on how you define metro, I want to say that the county is in the mid to upper 800,000 region at this point. But again, do you get to count Las Cruces at all, or do you also end up counting any of Juarez? I know the answer there. Generally, no, at least when it comes to U.S. Census. But if you're talking about the larger metro area, might indeed. So try to find the actual number for that, because I know we did have the census. City of El Paso, actually, by the 2020 census, just under 680,000 in the total population there. But the county, I think, yeah, it is a little bit higher than that. Yeah, closer to, nope, that's the wrong one. I'll give you that answer here in a bit. And of course, the father-in-law and such. Calvin Williams guessing 840,000. Yeah, we'll get that answer for you here in just a bit, because we are not El Paso. Personal pet peeve of mine that there is some county up in Colorado that calls them El Paso County. So sometimes when you're searching, you might end up, unfortunately, with El Paso County, Colorado, and it just ruins your whole day because you remembered that. So yeah, RJ saying 650, 680. That's more or less, again, where we are at for the city. And then, yes, for the county of El Paso, 837,000 people as of the last census. So not exactly a total lack of growth, but not a huge increase. I mean, the actual county not going up by a whole much since the last estimations. Significant growth from the last census, but just showing maybe some stagnation there as well. So we got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll talk more about that, but also those statewide issues that I am inadvertently teasing. We just keep running out of time in each segment. So don't forget about that phone line as well. If you're wanting to call in, that number to do so, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 westbound at Schuster Avenue, that crash has been cleared. All lanes are back open except for the entrance ramp. The Schuster entrance ramp to the I-10 is partially blocked by construction barrels. Still delays in the area. I-10 westbound at Executive Center Boulevard, another crash with police on the scene. I-10 westbound at Kansas, a disabled truck blocking the right shoulder, and an injury accident in Piedras north of Paisano. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
With so many real estate agents to choose from, how do you find the best one? Hi, it's Glenn Beck. One key is just looking for the investment that an agent is willing to make to get your home sold. Brian Birds with eXp Realty and his team have a marketing budget 25 times higher than the average agent's annual income. This means your home gets maximum exposure because it's marketed to the widest possible audience and gets you the highest possible sales price. Brian is so confident in his ability to sell your home fast and for more money that he's willing to put his own money on the line. If your home doesn't sell at the price and deadline you agree to, he'll buy it from you himself. You're not going to find another real estate agent in El Paso who is that invested in getting your home sold. He's the only one I'd call. Google Brian Birds. That's Brian, B-U-R-D-S. Read over 400 five-star reviews, because I'm not the only one who knows you should call Brian Birds. Google Brian Birds or just check out brianbirds.com.
17 million veterans have served our country. Coming home and healing may be the longest and hardest battle they face. Since 9/11, 100,000 veterans have died by suicide. Hundreds of thousands more suffer from the invisible wounds of war. It's time to act. Home Base provides 21st century world-class care to veterans and their families from across the country at no cost. To get care or find out how you can help, visit homebase.org/iHeart. Their mission is complete. Ours has just begun.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. Ah, that's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Always just minutes away from the latest news around town and around the world.
You need to know what's going on.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
News on the hour
and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. It's looking more like a bear market as the Dow Jones Industrial Average dropped like a rock today. Stocks fell sharply with the S&P 500 closing at a new low for this year. Recession fears sparked a broad sell-off that picked up steam in late trading. President Biden isn't trying to influence the Federal Reserve ahead of another expected interest rate hike.
We do have Federal Reserve, the chair and others in place. We're going to leave that and make sure that they're independent, leave the work to them.
So said White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre. Another rate hike is seen as an effort to corral soaring inflation. Former President Trump was a frequent critic of the Fed. A senior Republican elections attorney says the Trump campaign failed to make its case for voter fraud despite filing dozens of claims after the 2020 election. Testifying at today's televised hearing of the January 6th House Committee, Ben Ginsburg said the presidential election wasn't even close. Attorney Michael Avenatti is set to admit he stole millions of dollars from his clients in California. Lisa Taylor reports.
Avenatti said he intends to plea open, which allows a judge to set punishment without a plea agreement. Avenatti's advisory council said because he can't reach a deal with the federal government, he'll plea in order to be accountable and accept responsibility. Prosecutors say Avenatti stole almost $10 million from at least 5 of his clients between 2015 and 2019. He was already sentenced to over 2 years in jail for trying to extort Nike and another 2.5 years for stealing money from his adult film star client, Stormy Daniels. I'm Lisa Taylor.
The West Virginia man charged in a deadly mass shooting at a Western Maryland manufacturing company will remain behind bars. Jose Esquivel was denied bond as he appeared for a bail review hearing via video conference from jail. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. Legislation regarding toxic burn pits may be passed by the Senate this week. Michael Kastner has more.
The Honoring Our Pact Act would expand health care for veterans who've been exposed to toxic burn pits. The Senate is scheduled to hold 2 amendment votes this week, with the legislation possibly being passed as early as Wednesday. The House passed its toxic burn pits legislation in March. Democratic Senator John Tester, who chairs the Veterans Affairs Committee, urged the Senate to pass the bill, saying our vets and their families cannot wait any longer.
Police in Northern California are investigating an incident at a drag queen story hour as a possible hate crime. A group of men reportedly disrupted a children's story program hosted by a drag queen by yelling homophobic and anti-LGBTQ slurs. The incident happened Saturday at the San Lorenzo Library, about 25 miles southeast of San Francisco. Witnesses described the men as being members of the Proud Boys. Jury selection in 2 more trials begins this week in the grisly killing of Lisandro Jr. Guzman Feliz. Liz Warner reports.
In June of 2018, 15-year-old Guzman Feliz ran into a bodega trying to escape gang members who then dragged him back out and murdered him with knives and machetes. The bodega where the tragedy occurred closes up every June 20th to mark the killing, and murals in honor of the slain teen are up throughout the Tremont section of the Bronx. 5 members of the Trinitarios gang have already been convicted of murder and are all serving life sentences, with murder trials for 2 more defendants getting underway this week.
A man who raps about robbing ATMs is under arrest for robbing an ATM. LaDacian Riley was one of 4 people arrested recently for holding up an ATM technician at a Bank of America in Tennessee. Police say 2 of the suspects approached the technician and took thousands in cash before fleeing. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now, your chance at a trip to our 2022 iHeartRadio Music Festival. Text the nationwide keyword WIN to 200-200.
You'll get a confirmation text and info. Standard data and message rates apply in this nationwide contest. That's WIN to 200-200.
This report is sponsored by the Truth with Lisa Booth podcast.
How does a kid go from poverty to end up being a world-renowned brain surgeon and Secretary of HUD? We're going to get into that with Dr. Ben Carson. We're going to talk about his life, the current state of affairs in the country as well. Be sure to check out The Truth with Lisa Booth every Monday and Thursday on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
New on Curiosity Stream, she was a loving wife, a devoted mother. She also stole atomic secrets and gave them to the Soviets. Meet the woman whose deception kick-started the Cold War on the spy who stole the atom bomb. And
what if they catch you? Then I shall be sure.
they're coming! Come back! Relive history's most death-defying escapes. It's Impossible Escapes, Civil War. Watch now on Curiosity Stream. Annual plans are $20, just $1.67 a month. Visit curiositystream.com.
M1EP.com. Superior multifamily property management services citywide.
Are you ready for summer? Wherever summer takes you, make sure you take your favorite radio station with you on your adventures with the free iHeartRadio app. That's right, no matter how far from home you travel, this station, the music you love, and the best podcasts in the world will be right there with you in your pocket.
Summer soundtrack.
Sunscreen, flip-flops, and the free iHeart app. Must-haves for any summer checklist. Download the free iHeartRadio app and discover music, radio, and podcasts you'll love this summer.
If you see something, why do you say something?
I see safe for my friends.
For my community.
For everyone here. We all have something worth protecting, a why that unifies us. Report suspicious activity to local authorities. If you see something, say something.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. On those pages, a lot of people leaving their commentary as well. One of the better ways you can do so throughout the program. But we've also got those calls on the line here right now. If you wanted to chime in on the show, that number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM, the number to call there. Plus, don't forget about those either pound 250 messages, if you want to leave it that way, or the talkback feature on the iHeartRadio app. Dead simple. All you got to do is make sure you've got the app, be listening to us through it, or just be on the 690 page in general if we're off air at that point. One of our other hosts are on. Whenever off air, but the show isn't always on air. You get what I mean. Anyway, just look for that little red button. It may show up like this if you're looking over on the social media right now at the picture on screen, or maybe if you're listening to the actual station and actually on the page, maybe showing up a little bit closer to the bottom of the screen, but it's one of the red buttons, the one with the microphone on it. And again, you can leave your own message day or night during the show or not, much like this.
Hey, Andrew, it's Calvin from the far east El Paso. Just wanted to check out and see if this red microphone thing really worked, let you know you're doing a great job, and to let your listeners know that this is a great way to communicate. Thanks for taking my call.
And so again, because of that, Calvin has now won last week's $100 gift card to Gentleman's Republic Barber Salon and Men's Spa, part of the Father's Day giveaway all in that we are doing with them. We'll be giving away another one this week. So as I believe RJ also asked, you can choose from any of their supply of services there, because Barber Salon and Men's Spa includes quite a lot. So check out their full, of course, website at gentsrepublic.com. That's GENTS republic.com. And Calvin, be sure to drop us a line so we can let you know how to claim your prize. Otherwise, of course, again, the phone line's open, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Getting to those here in just a second. Also, some of those dropping those likes and reacts on primarily the Facebook page, facebook.com/Talk El Paso. We do appreciate Flaco Jimenez, Michael Robert Tipton, Robbie Flores, and Monica Cervantes. Also leaving some of those comments there. Kathy Codry, RJ, Kevin Williams, Flaco Jimenez, John Brazelton, Louis Pinato, John Hertz, Maria Coleman, and Eric von Holstein-Rathlow and Michael Perez, among others. A lot of commentary about management, organization, voting in the city. Point was actually made to me in the break as well, that in terms of ranked choice voting, Las Cruces currently has it here, which I do remember hearing, but had completely forgotten since I have never voted up there in the land of enchantment. So it is in the region, I guess you could say, but how well that's working out for them might be worth looking into, actually, as we have some of these further conversations. Otherwise, on the point of the question came up before the break about the actual population of El Paso and the larger county as a whole. Yeah, 679,000. I'll call it 837,000 for the county, city and county respectively there. Kevin Williams calling 836. I mean, it's close enough. I mean, it's technically correct here. And RJ then asking if Catherine Codry is planning a picnic or a bioweapon attack, and in which case you'll either have a cheeseburger or might want to get out of town for the weekend here. So let's hope it's definitely the first one here, because if it will be nice, then bringing potato salad and the beer sounds like a much better plan here. But let's get to those calls on the line again. That number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Also, I think we had one more come in here. Elma Balboa dropping that like. We do appreciate it. Let's get to those calls. I believe we have Raul in the Northeastern line here with us right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew, a couple of things. I think ranked choice voting is a great idea. I'd love to have it. It would give me more options and flexibility. And those of us who vote regularly, we can figure it out. It's not rocket science, okay? People are either going to vote or not. For those of us who vote, we want more options. We want more availability. 5 teenagers were shot this Saturday night at Louisville, Kentucky, on a popular Big Four bridge that's used by pedestrians and cyclists. What a country that Trump didn't make great again. You know, no civilian needs an assault rifle or any kind of killing machine that can shoot out many bullets at a super high velocity in seconds. This should not be a toy for any civilians. And the public does not need those weapons of mass destruction on the street. They threaten the lives of children, of Americans in every venue across this country at any time. It is a disaster. You know, most liberals and Democrats and progressives and people on the left, we believe that civilians should be able to own a pistol and a shotgun for personal defense and a hunting rifle for sport, but not an AK-47, not an AR-15, or ground-to-ground missile like a Stinger, or a Javelin, or a ground-to-air missile, you know, like the stuff that we're supplying the Ukrainians with to take on Trump's pal Putin. So people don't need that. Now, here's a headline. The city of Uvalde is working to cover up the police records from the shooting. They've gone quiet there. Texas Republicans are being exposed after a failed Uvalde cover-up, and that goes all the way to the governor. And so much so that now a federal investigation is started into the Uvalde shooting. So we can find out, until these families can find out how 16 guys, good guys with a gun, didn't save those kids. Now, you know, they ought to impose a tax on gun sales to cover the costs for security for schools and other venues, and compensation to victims and their families for the deaths and injuries suffered by the people using these guns and having these guns available. Now, Andrew, do you think civilians should be able to own Stingers and Javelins?
Again, if you got a good source of them, let me know, because I'd be very interested to see what their pricing looks like. But to your major point there, if you're really trying to describe things as weapons of mass destruction, there actually is a category that involves that. And it's, well, among other reasons, why there was part of the justification for the second invasion of Iraq, among other things. But if you really want to get down to brass tacks about, okay, you're saying that pistols are okay in your estimation, and that, again, there is just the deaths caused by everything else is just that's acceptable, but nothing else is. I think you would be very interested to know that, according to just looking at one came up in front of me right now almost immediately, that for 2016, according to the FBI, that gun crime in the United States, the total amount of firearm murders that happened was 11,000. Now, I'm not saying that that's a great number, but I think you might be very interested to know then that the amount of murders caused by rifles, of which you're talking about there with the AR-15 and everything styled like that, the technical classification there is a rifle, was 374, and the amount caused by handguns was 7,105. So this is why, as much as, anything that happened in Uvalde, anything that happened in Sutherland Springs, anything that happened in any of those things, including the Walmart here in El Paso, by any of those categories, I am by no means calling those a good things, and the people who committed those crimes deserve everything they get, and probably much more than that. And anyone reasonably out there who actually thinks about the tool nature of the implement we are discussing here and thinks that this is acceptable, I have some serious issues with, actually. That's just cost of doing business. No, that is unacceptable in this country. But if we really wanted to say, okay, then let's tackle gun crime, let's tackle the murders caused by it, by even starting with rifles, that is just showing the complete, it's almost laughable, the disparity of how this, and this is again coming from the FBI nationally, and that bears out across years. This is not a fluke. In fact, from the numbers I got in front of me here, between 2012 and 2016, 2016 was the only year that the amount of homicides caused by rifle were above 300. Otherwise, they were always below in the mid to upper 200s, but handguns were always at least above 5,500, usually in the 6,000 and 7,000 range. So to say that, okay, that these weapons of mass destruction, I don't think you know the meaning of that phrase, and that just shows its incredibly the political nature of it. And also, it's just interesting the way you're describing it there, because that obviously is then leading towards the next conversation, the high velocity part of it. Velocity, surprisingly enough, has almost nothing to do with lethality. Sure, it may sound like you're punching a hole in something. If it goes all the way through, you're doing more damage, when actually it's counterintuitive, I will admit. But if you've actually looked at ballistic tests, among other things, it's the lack of transfer of energy happens that way. If you're just talking pure physical nature, which is why these whole, blowing apart of bodies, anyone who actually knows something about this platform and the specs on it knows that is a mildly nonsensical statement. But we're getting really deep in the weeds here. Let's get back to those calls in the line here. But we actually, tell you what, we've got to take that next break right now. So I thank you for the point in the call, even if I find myself disagreeing with you more than usual, particularly on this point. But we've got to take that next break right now. We'll get to more of those calls in the line. So if you're on the line there right now, stay there. We got to take that quick break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot to talk about, a lot more calls, a lot more issues we'll discuss. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Back after this break with more. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Checking El Paso freeways, that earlier crash I-10 westbound at Schuster has cleared. The 3 vehicles all off to the right. The backup, though, is to Porfirio Diaz. I-10 westbound at Executive Center Boulevard. Police still on the scene of a crash there. I-10 westbound at Kansas, a dump truck is off right, blocking the shoulder. And Piedras north of Paisano Drive, an injury accident at Cypress. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Staples Stores. Staples' free PC tune-up event is this Saturday and Sunday. Bring your existing PC to any Staples to improve your startup and operating speeds and junk file removal. Plus, get free tune-up software good for a year. Valid in-store on existing Windows devices only. Appointments encouraged by phone or in-store. Staples.
Maybe you've had to put off a health appointment or two during the COVID-19 pandemic. But if you're 45 or older, there's one test you shouldn't put off any longer. That's your regular screening for colorectal cancer. Colorectal cancer is the leading cancer killer, but can be prevented with regular screenings starting at age 45. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. It takes guts to put your health first. Ask your doctor about your options today and visit cdc.gov/screenforlife for more information.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Research shows listeners don't like it when ads interrupt their music. So to help you remember that Liberty Mutual customizes home insurance, we made this ad optional. If you want to skip this ad, remove your left earphone. Liberty Mutual customizes home insurance so you only pay for what you need.
If you're missing this informative ad, you must love wasting your cash.
It's the easy and smart way to save.
Now it's all been said, so if that your phone was out, put it back in your head.
Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Traffic's bad enough without Mother Nature adding to your headache. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed with El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM.
Titans go!
When the Teen Titans go to the movies, they know the best way to travel is safely.
Hollywood, here we come!
And you know it's super.
To keep your child safe, be sure to use the right car seat for their age and size.
Exactly. I know you're feeling. We're finally on the big screen.
Have a seat, my dude. For more information on finding the right seat, visit nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
Gotcha. That's a wise move.
It's an Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch.tv. Find us either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk on most of those platforms. We also got those phone lines open right now. That number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544 KTSM, and of course those other ways that you can chime in if you decide that you would like to, both with the talkback feature on the iHeartRadio app, as well as, of course, the pound 250 message there. At least one of those comments coming in here. You by no means have to say that you like it or do anything with the show. Frankly, we appreciate feedback. I would never want to be involved with something where if I don't like what you're saying, you're not going to get to say it. That literally goes counter to the point of the show here. So if you're wanting to make your comments and again be entered into the drawing for the giveaway for the Gentleman's Republic gift card for Father's Day, you can leave your message over again there through the talkback feature. We'll be doing that again for this week for that gift card for, well, their services, whatever you want over there. Get your haircut, get your beard cut, get the trim, get the expert styling, however you want to do it, and of course the complimentary drink or even cigar. Just give them a call and you'll be able to hash it all out there, what exactly you want to do. So no, you do not have to praise me by any means. I mean, I'm human, I appreciate it, but I also find it useful when people tell me where they think I'm messing up, because we can make adjustments given the case here. Also, again, dropping those likes and react. Kevin Williams, Elmo Balboa, Flaco Jimenez, Michael Robert Tipton, Robbie Flores, and Monica Cervantes. A lot of commentary coming in here about telling it like it is and dealing with it. Okay, this is one, I mean, in a lot of ways, I am just a well-researched person, but actually when it comes to this issue, believe it or not, I actually am a certified AR-15 armorer. No, I've never actually been employed in the area, but have the level of interest that whenever I'm wanting to study something and truly know about it and implementation of a platform like that, I want to be sure I know what the hell I'm doing. So took the time to get certified and do the classwork on that kind of a thing. And yes, have some direct implemented experience on my own on that platform, just not the professional sense, shall we say here. So it's a lot of interesting commentary coming in there. And if you want to leave your message, feel free to do so. But let's go back to those calls here right now. Again, 915-544-5876-544-KTSM. We do have on the line, we have Mike in the Northeast with us right now. Mike, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks, Andrew.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for taking my call. I listen a lot, but I just had to chime in today after your comments there on the 2016 FBI report, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
The fact of the matter is, we can talk about, and the right likes to go, conservatives like to go into the weeds as far as, well, you know, there's murders in Chicago every weekend, and there's people can be killed by pistols, et cetera. The fact of the matter is, we're talking about apples and bowling balls when we're talking about mass murders on children or on elderly people, and we're talking about gun crime that happens due to usually three things: poverty, drugs, or relationships that have gone wrong. And that's where all those one-on-one pistol shotgun / murders come from. The fact of the matter is, if an 18-year-old wants access to a AR-15 style rifle, they can join the military. There's 4 branches that'll give them one. They won't have as easy access as a private citizen has to them, but they will have access. And it's very lazy, and quite frankly, it's very disrespectful to people who have lost people in mass shootings to compare 2016 gun crime numbers to those of elementary school age kids killed in a elementary school by an AR-15, or elderly people shopping in a grocery store. I'm so tired of people trying to compare the two when they are completely uncomparable. It's lazy and it's rude. I'll take your comments out there. Thanks.
No, sure thing. I mean, thank you for the point in the call here. I mean, okay, I get what you're saying. The idea that the implements actually used in this specific crime you're discussing there is of more concern to you than just about anything else. And just to further reference what you were talking about there, that shotguns being a part of it, shotguns usually end up ranking actually lower than handguns or rifles for that matter, and actual use as implements of crime here. There was a minor crime wave, I guess you could put it here, a spate would be probably the better way to describe it, of gun store robberies in our area in the last couple of years. I don't remember the exact date of it because it was more or less 3 incidents that were connected eventually to it, of gun stores getting broken into and things getting stolen from them. And so if you were thinking about someone really truly wanting to use an effective implement of crime, that they may have, well, they're going to grab what they thought would be most useful to them. And in at least one of those cases that I happen to know some more specifics about, having known some of the people that were unfortunately affected by it, what was largely taken were, well, handguns, and not even necessarily ammunition, just the handguns, because I think the way it actually got referred to was they are implements of further crime, that they were going to use these to do, strong arm robberies, hold ups, maybe some jugging, which is an interesting phrase where essentially you see someone having taken money or valuables out of a place and you wait till they stop and then you just take it directly out of their vehicle. Comes from like a stagecoach era terms as far as I'm aware. But if you're saying you're not concerned about those, you're not going to be worried about those, I guess that's one thing here, and you're worried about these major incidents. And you know what? I can almost understand that, except for the fact that it shows that it's only the things that really affect you that you're worried about here. That, well, these are the things that get presented to me, and therefore I'm concerned about. I'm not even talking about Chicago here. So I guess you're drawing in some other commentary, so I guess that makes a level of sense. But to say that, well, I only care about the things that I feel the most emotional about, because again, necessarily blame you. But if you're really wanting to worry about not even just gun crime, because this is not even just crimes done with guns, these are homicides done by guns. And you're saying that, well, not even just the vast majority, but almost the entirety of it just doesn't concern me. Yeah, that's not, I think, the look you're going for when we're having this conversation. Yes, and I did fully state there at the start of that here, the idea that these incidents happen should and do, I think, concern what I would term responsible gun owners, those that are responsibly armed citizens. The idea that anything that they use for, well, their own purposes and protecting themselves and their families could be used for such a completely evil purpose. If anyone says like, nah, I'm not worried about that at all, I have worries about that person. Make no mistake. But the ways that we then go about this, if we're not looking at gun crime in general, you're just saying, well, I just want to deal with the things that I feel affect either my mentality or someone like me most personally, and I just avoid the bad areas of town. I'm not sure that's saying what you want it to say there. So it's a thing that irks me anytime we have this conversation, anytime it comes up that, yes, let's look at what we find that makes the biggest headlines and not actually what affects the most Americans. That's the way I look at it. And so if you call that apples to bowling balls, of course, you're entitled to your opinion there, but I'm going to find myself disagreeing with you in the implementation of how we then go about this, particularly since the laws that end up going along those lines, staying with the line of thinking that you've got there of, well, we need to address these most concerning incidents, they don't even actually go towards that. I have long been a proponent of, frankly, on any aspect, whether you're pro or against firearms laws and how they're implemented, both in the expansion of rights or in the restriction of them in the cases we're talking about here, holding the elected officials accountable for it. And I feel that applies to both Republicans and Democrats, usually Democrats, unfortunately, on the side of restricting gun rights, from my perspective anyway. That's my personal call. But also those who say that, in large, that the Republicans are the ones fighting for the expansion of gun rights. That doesn't always bear out. If you're not actually looking what your elected official is doing, you might be getting led down a certain primrose path without anything actually beefing it up. So accountability is key on both sides of this. But if you're even looking at, again, what we're talking about with, say, that assault weapons ban of 1994 that has gotten a lot more into the conversation lately, none of those things in that law necessarily have anything to do with the actual lethality of the platform or how it can be used. Yes, there's conversations happening about magazine sizes. There's a certain level of concern there, but if you're dealing with a semi-automatic platform that is magazine fed, in any case, you are dealing with something that can be reloaded with a certain amount of expeditiousness. So saying that that is going to make it so they don't have so many rounds on tap, that doesn't actually bear out when you're looking at the implementation of the platform. But then we start talking about, bayonet lugs, flash hiders, collapsible stocks. None of that has anything to do with the actual utilization of the platform. Okay, it's flash hider has a little bit to do with muzzle rise and follow-up shots, but really getting into the weeds here, doesn't actually have to do anything with how it can be used and the lethality that could come with it. I guess the closest you're getting is kind of magazine size, but even then, I don't think that those who are going to be putting this new into place or looking at these arguments that are being had are actually going to be getting down that much into the, okay, what would actually be effective, so much as what do I think that the people who are likely to vote for me think that they like the least? And anytime you're getting into that level of analysis, I don't think you're going to get what you want to, even out of your espoused positions on this. So welcome to disagree with me on this, of course, but knowing what exactly we're talking about, the specifics of it, however many times people get ticked off on all sides of the political aisle when there are legislators that clearly have no idea what the subject is and then trying to implement laws on it, that definitely applies to this as well. So let's lose one more call before we hit this next break right now. Again, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We do have Ben on the east side here with us right now. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Hello, Andrew. I had a conversation over the weekend with a friend of mine who, like Raul, wants to take our guns away and everything. And I had to admit to him, yes, we do have the highest percentage of gun ownership in the population in the world. And I had to do that, but I also started thinking about it, and I went back to this thing about high potency marijuana and violence.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I did a research and found out that we're the only country in the world that allows the legal sale of high potency marijuana. And, the link between that and violence has been shown to be, there. And it's interesting that in 1995, the potency of marijuana that was around was about 4%. And by the year 2014, the average potency in marijuana was 12%. And now we're at 95%, 75, 95%, something like that sort. So, could it just be that we are overlooking something that doesn't have anything to do with the guns? It's a matter that we actually are poisoning our youth and our population with high potency marijuana, which is a big industry in the United States, and a source of taxes for various states, governments, and potentially, if we can get a national marijuana law making it where it's legal in all states, all throughout the United States, how much money can it make our U.S. government? So the billions there, does it have more importance than maybe getting rid of these mass shootings?
I mean, I think it has an impact. I'm not convinced that this is a sole source of what we're seeing with these incidents here. I mean, I will say, even in this conversation we're having, when it comes to the ideas of looking at gun laws, we get fully opposed to those that, among other things, wouldn't have any impact on the incidents that have happened, even recently, but otherwise writ large. I think there are some things that could have some impact, particularly on the idea of having disturbed people with instant access, waiting periods. I know that's not terrifically popular, but I'd be willing to look at that more than I would other laws have put forth here. But again, the way that it looks to me, when you're talking about things like, the potency, I mean, looking at some of the stats on, oftentimes growing up, the idea of going to Amsterdam, if there were people of that persuasion to, to go to the coffee shops where they have legal weed, that kind of thing. I mean, their potency levels are around, 15 to 18%, according to some of the Dutch government data on there, which is, again, what the modern movement here in the United States is well outstripped by. So I think that has a level of impact, but when you start looking at an aggregate, a big picture becomes a little bit clearer to me anyway. When you're looking at things like this, again, the marijuana things, also the amount of ways that, again, guns are portrayed in media as that completely disconnected from real life. Also, the mental health crises. And again, I'm not saying that any of these individually are, that's the issue here. We fix that, everything will be good. I think we're not looking at this as a more of a whole, almost holistically, but with real implementation of solutions going into it, we're going to be missing the larger picture here. So I think you've got a point, but I also think it connects more directly with a lot of these other issues we're talking about these days.
Well, you're talking about 15 to 18% in Amsterdam, and that's the legal amount. And we're allowing 75, 95% in the United States sold over the counter. I would think that somebody should look at that relationship and everything more. And of course, it's the matter that, the breakup of families, young men without dads, violent video games, gun-free zones, publishing the shooters' manifestos. If you want to make a lot of impact going out, if you're going to get you're going to kill yourself or you want to kill other people, let's go for the gun-free zones. The more people they kill, the more their notoriety, and they get to have their manifestos published.
Yeah, the whole they'll never forget me kind of aspect to it, I find more than a little bit disturbing as well.
So, I really wish that people would start at least trying to find out, get rid of the high potency marijuana.
I think it's something.
It can't hurt. It can't hurt us.
Yeah, because I think that just societally, I think it's probably coming. Texas might be one of the last places to look at actual legalization, if not even federally before that point, and even then probably dry counties doesn't quite work there. Smoke-free, smokeless, THC-less, I'm sure there'll be some pithy phrase that can apply to it. But yeah, the fact that, well, there's two real factors that come to mind for me there. The amount that's the potency of it there. I mean, there's restrictions on what ABV can be done in certain beverages, and there are certain things that are legal in one state and illegal in others. So that's a conversation probably to be had. But also the fact that the testing on these is, it being federally illegal still, not federally regulated, or even federal standards applied to this. There's been more than a few places that I've become aware of, again, outside of Texas, where there's been labs that have bad reputations because they might be willing to bump up your rating a little bit to make it more marketable if you pay them a little bit more. So there's a lot of factors that are going to need to be, the real issue is you don't even actually know what's actually you're dealing with here, because if they're not actually worried about the accuracy, but rather the marketability, it could just a whole bunch of issues come with it.
All you have to do is look at Alex Berenson's book and also the NIH findings on the link between violence, the NIH findings, about the link between violence and high potency marijuana. Just look it up online, and it's all over the place, but nobody seems to want to look at that at all.
I think it's important things that we need to. Oh, yeah, the money is definitely an issue here. Again, when you've got former speakers of the House, of the national legislature getting involved in it that were otherwise staunchly opposed to it, there's clearly been some change in thinking there. So we'll have to talk further about that. So thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, we got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll get to more of the points, more of the calls, more of the comments on the line here. A lot coming in online and more of the calls, of course, on the phone line. If you want to call in there, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso. You're on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I'm Selena Madrid with your CBS 4 News Update. El Paso police have arrested 2 men in connection to a Lower Valley shooting. 17-year-old Israel Huerta and 20-year-old Dante Favela are charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon and issued a bond of $200,000 each. The shooting happened just before 10 p.m. on June 1st on Edith Drive. Police say that is when officers first responded to the scene and they found a 17-year-old boy with a gunshot wound. It was later discovered that while 3 women were there helping the boy, the 2 suspects drove by and fired rounds at them as well. Luckily, the women were not hit and the boy's injuries were not life-threatening. And El Paso police need your help tracking down a couple who placed about $3,400 worth of ammunition into a stroller and stole it. This happened on May 28th at the Cabela's on the west side. Police say the suspects are a black man and a white or Hispanic woman, both in their late 20s to early 30s. Anyone with info is asked to call El Paso Crime Stoppers at 566-TIPS.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
El Paso police on the scene of a crash, I-10 westbound at Lee Trevino. That accident's blocking the right shoulder. Gateway Boulevard westbound at Copia, an injury accident reported there. On the 10 westbound at Kansas, still got that dump truck blocking the right shoulder. George Dieter northbound south of Pelicano at Penndale, an accident reported, and an injury accident rushing at Sun Valley Drive. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
After a stretch of extremely hot weather, changes are on the horizon as our weather pattern will begin to shift. Expect a partly cloudy sky tonight with a 10% chance for an isolated shower or storm, and it'll be another warm one as temperatures bottom out in the middle to upper 70s. Coming up tonight, we'll talk about a cooling trend along with an increased chance for rain and storms. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Kira Miner.
This report is sponsored by the Truth with Lisa Booth podcast.
How does a kid go from poverty to end up being a world-renowned brain surgeon and Secretary of HUD? We're going to get into that with Dr. Ben Carson. We're going to talk about his life, the current state of affairs in the country as well. Be sure to check out The Truth with Lisa Booth every Monday and Thursday on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, El Paso, Ivan Ochoa, General Manager of Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. We make car buying fast, fun, and easy. And due to high demand, we need trades. So we'll do whatever it takes to get you out of your old vehicle into a new car, truck, or SUV today.
Even if you owe thousands more than your trade is worth, we want it, so you can get huge savings on every new and certified pre-owned vehicle in our huge inventory. For a limited time, get $4,000 off MSRP on the all-new 2022 full-size Wagoneer SUV with third-row seating and up to $7,000 off select new Ram trucks. Super low 2.9% APR for 72 months on the all-new 2022 Dodge Charger. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Trade and upgrade for less during the Make the Switch event at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying a car is fun at I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina El Paso strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL. 2.9% APR is $15.15 per thousand finance. On select vehicles. 0 down with approved credit. Offers not combined.
Talk El Paso, weekdays at 4 on News Radio 690 KTSM, breaking down the impact of the news on the borderland and beyond. Brought to you in part by Mission Del Rey Southwest, souvenirs, gifts, and decor. That's Talk El Paso, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., right here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Bitcoin is under attack in some states while it's being welcomed in others. What's going on and what comes next? I'm Mark Moss, each week discussing the decentralized revolution. So join me on the Mark Moss Show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. A lot of ways to, of course, comment on the show those way. Calling on the phone line right now, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM, the number to call there, as well as just a lot of comments coming in online. Kathy Codry, RJ, Flaco Jimenez, Eric von Holstein-Rathlow, Kathy Codry, Calvin Williams, Flaco Jimenez, I feel like I'm referring to myself there, Marky Mandingo as well, and a lot of interestingly technical discussions going on there about different calibers here. I guess I'm always a little bit surprised by what goes on over in the comment section here. Some of the interesting ones going on here. 2 points I just wanted to make before continuing on here. There were 2 points made previously about the idea of civilians having no need to have weapons of war. Again, however much we're celebrating what's happening in Ukraine, they were literally distributing them out to anyone who could prove they were a citizen of Ukraine. So, just saying. Also, the idea that, the many issues leading to there being concerns about certain people ultimately use, for the most part here, though there's not the exclusive category as well, in owning arms. One of those factors, contributing factors, as the previous caller was mentioning there, we were discussing a bit, is just the sheer lack of knowledge about firearms in this country these days. Again, I see it coming down in really two ways. You got your extremes here. One, almost fearful, hoplophobia is a term that gets thrown around a lot, scared about any aspect of it. The mere presence of a firearm causing a almost tantamount to panic, or at least severe concern. And then the opposite end of the spectrum, those almost a sacred object to them, a fetish item in the pseudo-religious sense, not in the other sense here, of being something that is a manifestation of their worship of the concept, essentially. And I got a bone to pick with both of those sides of things, because literally a firearm is a tool that, having knowledge of, by no means impugns your intelligence or ability to understand things, or going beyond and saying, oh, no. I mean, the debates that happen online. Someone brought up stopping power, and I don't think they meant it maliciously, but let's just say that's a trigger word for me from the many online arguments that I've either watched or participated in, until I learned better than not to do so, because, yeah, that's certainly one here. But let's go back to those phone lines now, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. I guess my point is that knowledge and not either blind ignorance or even support of it, I think, is a much better way for us to go as a society. We do have Jerry in Northwest on the line with us here right now. Jerry, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Andrew, for taking my call.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of things about this gun control discussion we have going on.
Mm-hmm.
In 1939, the Supreme Court ruled that guns used to support the militia are the ones that should be held by the people of, through the ages.
Mm-hmm.
So the ones that support the militia, that means it has to be the same caliber, 223 caliber or a 5.56 millimeter is the same round the U.S. military or the militia, National Guard people, or reserves or naval reserves use in their rifles, in their carbines. 9 millimeter is the same round used in the pistols, the sidearms of individuals when they carry it. So those two rounds are used in the military from the militia. So next thing, magazine capacity. The U.S. military would not have to change any magazine capacity or adjust magazines in order for it to fit an AK or an AR. AK it does, but the Russian portion of it doesn't have to change. Russian military. So anyway, having a throat problem, getting dry throat. Anyway, to continue on, that the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that those are the weapons that people are to have for support of the militia. So bayonet lugs should be included on that. So if they're passing laws and they're going against the 1939 ruling of the Supreme Court, are they breaking the law? Next question.
Mm-hmm.
The ones and the people that committed Columbine, and I'm not going to use their names because I never use the murderers' names. They were pistols and sawed-off shotguns and pipe bombs. No semi-automatic rifles were used in there, but they were 9mm pistols and sawed-off shotguns. And that was during the 1993-94 gun ban under President
Clinton at that time.
Yes, Clinton. Under President Clinton and the Brady Act, those individuals got weapons to mass murder people in the school that were not semi-automatic semi-automatic rifles. So the law did not affect that. It did not change Columbine at all. And I don't believe it would have changed Uvalde either. So the individual picking the weapon, they picked the weapon because of the fanciness of it, of how they look. And the thing that they'll get a lot more coverage in the news because they use this certain weapon. A lot of it is because they're seeking to be classified and worshipped by other people. You understand what I'm saying? They're seeking the limelight.
Yeah, I mean, obviously.
Yes. So those two things, when people talk about individuals not owning weapons of war, not according to the U.S. Supreme Court. That's their ruling, 1939.
Yep.
U.S. versus Miller.
Yep, do recall studying that one back in school.
The definition of the militia, you just need to look under 10 code or U.S. code 246, and there's two definitions of militia in there. So people are authorized to have those weapons according to the Supreme Court and according to the law, U.S. 10 code or code 10, U.S. code 246. Thank you, Andrew. I'll listen to your response.
Oh, sure thing. Thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it. Yeah, I do remember studying in my college days in my constitutional law classes. United States versus Miller as an interesting one there. I mean, the major impact was on the continuation of the NFA, the 1934 National Firearms Act. That is where we get the tax stamps, for anyone familiar with that, that still to this day has even, again, notably the same amount of penalties involved, or rather tax stamp transfer costs of $200 required for use of any of the NFA items, which includes short-barreled shotguns, short-barreled rifles, suppressors, and to a certain extent, also any other weapons, which is a weird nebulous category that I don't even have a really good grasp on, I will freely admit. But they specifically said, quoting from oye.org, which is a great resource for anyone wanting to look up recreationally Supreme Court cases. Yes, I have done that. No, I'm not going to require you to do so. But if you're wanting to know in on these things, the question as it came down to, does the Second Amendment protect an individual's right to keep and bear a sawed-off double-barrel shotgun? And the unanimous majority in this case said that because it does not have anything to do with the actual relationship or the preservation or efficiency of a well-regulated militia, that the Second Amendment does not protect the possession of such an instrument. So it is still, in most places, I guess, illegal to do so. It is not necessarily one related to the implementation of the Second Amendment, but thereby doing so, as you're mentioning there, making it so that, yes, there is a relationship between what would actually reasonably be expected to be used in the well-regulated but otherwise unorganized militia and the possession of it by the individual. So important points to make there. I'm having trouble tracking some of the commentary going on the comments page. I really hope there's a lot of sarcasm going on there right now, because the amount of times I'm seeing some phrases that, again, go to back to my days of actually arguing with people online as opposed to sitting in front of a microphone and doing it. Y'all giving me some like Vietnam level flashbacks is all I'm saying here. So tell you what, we got to take that next break right now. Coming out of the break, we'll squeeze in what we can and talk more about all this stuff going on here, as well as tell you what we got coming up for you on the show. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690
Checking El Paso traffic. Watch for a crash on the I-10 westbound at Lee Trevino Drive. It's blocking the right shoulder. Gateway Boulevard westbound at Copia Street. An injury accident reported. Stalled vehicles blocking the right shoulder. I-10 westbound at McRae. And a crash reported on South Mesa Hills east of Mesa at Table Rock Drive. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Truth with Lisa Booth podcast.
How does a kid go from poverty to end up being a world-renowned brain surgeon and Secretary of HUD? We're going to get into that with Dr. Ben Carson. We're going to talk about his life, the current state of affairs in the country as well. Be sure to check out The Truth with Lisa Booth every Monday and Thursday on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
With so many real estate agents to choose from, how do you find the best one? Hi, it's Glenn Beck. One key is just looking for the investment that an agent is willing to make to get your home sold. Brian Birds with eXp Realty and his team have a marketing budget 25 times higher than the average agent's annual income. This means your home gets maximum exposure because it's marketed to the widest possible audience and gets you the highest possible sales price. Brian is so confident in his ability to sell your home fast and for more money that he's willing to put his own money on the line. If your home doesn't sell at the price and deadline you agree to, he'll buy it from you himself. I'm not going to find another real estate agent in El Paso who is that invested in getting your home sold. He's the only one I'd call. Google Brian Birds. That's Brian, B-U-R-D-S. Read over 400 five-star reviews because I'm not the only one who knows you should call Brian Birds. Google Brian Birds or just check out brianbirds.com.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Orangutans. They're beautiful, playful, and majestic, and disappearing. Every day, as many as 20 orangutans vanish. They starve to death when their homes are destroyed or are killed when they stray into villages in search of food. International Animal Rescue is fighting for the survival of the critically endangered orangutan, but we can't do it without you. Please visit internationalanimalrescue.org and help us save orangutans before it's too late. That's internationalanimalrescue.org.
M1EP.com. Superior multifamily property management services citywide.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Short timing here as we're in the last segment of the day here. So tell you what, in the upcoming shows, we'll get to those state level issues that we kept teasing today and inadvertently not getting to. But hey, this happens with live radio sometimes, and the discussion going where it needs to. Don't forget, of course, you can leave us messages through the Talkback feature on the iHeartRadio app or even through the pound 250 feature if you are interested in doing so. Again, simple way to do that, dial pound 250, say the keyword Talk El Paso when prompted, and you can leave your own message like this.
This is Messiah Frankie. I heard that nut job from California, Craven McCrudney, goes out and says that, hey, this attack on the Capitol is a responsibility of everybody out there. Everybody bore responsibility for that. Oh, yeah? How is that there, Craven? How is it that I'm responsible? I was never anywhere near it. I didn't support it or nothing. So far off the reservation, you're not even in the same universe with the rest of every normal stinking human out there, you morons.
Then we'll certainly get to that topic. Yes, there are more of the hearings coming up, and we'll delve into those as we need to. Don't forget, Friday is always around the corner here when we do take on any subject, particularly things like that. I think we got time to squeeze in one quick call here. We do have Kevin on the east side here with us right now. Kevin, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Andrew. I'd like to say that when I was stationed at Cameron Bay, we had a detachment of about 200 people. Every single one of us had an M16 assigned to us, which we kept close at hand by our bunk. We had ammunition. In my recollection, we didn't have anyone killed. Americans, I'm talking about, by another American. There are talks of fragging of officers and everything. I didn't see any of that when I was there. But every soldier had fully automatic weapon, and none of us use those weapons against each other. Just an observation.
I think a good one to be made there, so I appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there. There's more to go into this here, and again, the training and actual knowledge about the platform I find to be very influential, something I've sought out myself, and we're going to have to leave it there for today because we are super out of time for this program. I want to thank everyone who did call in, comment, participate in the show. We will do it again tomorrow, 4 to 6 p.m., as we do every Monday through Friday, right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road. And have a great evening all. We'll talk to you all tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Checking El Paso traffic. Watch for a crash on the I-10 westbound at Lee Trevino Drive. It's blocking the right shoulder. Gateway Boulevard westbound at Copia Street. An injury accident reported. Stalled vehicles blocking the right shoulder. I-10 westbound at McRae. And a crash reported on South Mesa Hills, east of Mesa at Table Rock Drive. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today for good,